Can I just do a quick check to make sure I haven't missed anybody for our records? I have Heed, Parker, Melendez, Franco, Baumgardner, and Bordelon. There's a lot of us here. Thank you, though, for inviting us. We appreciate it, and we look forward to hearing what you have in store for us.
Yes, thank you, Patrice. And it is 6:32, so I'm going to call the Board of Ed body to order. But first, Miss Joan, do I have a quorum?
I have 5.
That's a quorum.
We're there.
All right. I do know that Dean has sent his regards, and I think that if Jay is on, Jay will most likely be.
Jay's here.
Okay, that he will be on without the video because he's not feeling so well. So he that's what my understanding of that is. So I'm calling the Board of Ed meeting to order at 6:33.
And Town Council to order at 6:33 as well.
And we do not have a quorum for the RTM. I note, in addition to myself, Representative Fitzgerald, Whitney, Fortner, Cassieri, and Thomas, if there's anyone on the RTM who is here and I didn't see, please identify yourself now. So we do not have a quorum, and I'm going to treat this as an informational session, and it would be great, though, if you could share your minutes with us. Thank you.
Absolutely, Sima. We'd be more than happy to do that. I do know that the Finance Committee of the RTM is meeting tonight as well. And so my sense is that that's probably where some of the bodies are, the people are. They're live bodies, not dead. And so I am going to start off and just with a just an apology for the fact that there was some miscommunication and this went kind of clunky, and it was never my intent for this to be clunky. That this is really the time period that the board has in the past met with the town council to just kind of hear from the town council about where they're coming from in terms of what they're thinking about for not what our budget, but sort of what the monies are and the finances are. A couple of years ago, actually, Sima and Patrice kind of had mostly the education committee from the board from the RTM meet, but I were added to the town council, and I just thought that it was a much more fruitful and conversation. I just am a firm believer in collaboration between all the bodies, and so that happens with communication, and so. I guess kind of Sima, I just kind of said, so why not have all the RTM? Because we're on Zoom and it's a little bit more easier in terms of bodies to sort of manage, even though our square gets smaller and smaller. And so I'm kind of helpful for that to have happen. So that's the premise behind this meeting. There is no trying to slight anyone, any miscommunication or clunkiness I own because of my humanness. And every year I'll try to make this better and can't guarantee it, but I'm going to try. But what I do want to do is that, so the goal is just to kind of have a conversation about the budget, sort of what's been going on. Please remember though, is that this is not the board's budget, that we are still marching through the superintendent's budget, where we have to, on the 28th, be able to have it voted and on the town manager's desk for then the town council, then the RTM to then peruse. So when we have the conversation tonight, it really isn't what the board has. It is really what the superintendent and her staff are presenting to the board. And we met on Monday, and we're going to have two meetings on Monday and Tuesday of next week, specifically on budget workshop. And which is a great point that the mayor and Sima both have said, is that if you do have like questions that might need more information, feel free to send that to me and to Susan, and we'll be able to kind of once again be able to look at it on Monday and Tuesday and get the information back to you from the staff. So please know that. I think one of the ways that the board has been trying to see the budget in the past couple of years is that it tells a story, right? That it's a story about the educational process that's happening in the Groton district. And one of the things that I know Susan and her staff are going to probably present a couple of slides that kind of talk about sort of where our funding it comes from and also sort of where most of our money goes to in the budget. Because because we see it as a story, I did ask for her to kind of talk a little bit about what's happening with COVID, possibly the CARES Act monies that have come to us or are coming to us. Also kind of talk about, we've been talking about the Groton 2020 and we're in 2021, but we still, to talk a little bit more about what's happening on the campus for the middle school and the high school. And that just because we're not going to want to be bored, we're also in construction on two elementary schools where we have the Thames Street, the Thames River Magnet Elementary School, and we also have the Mystic River Elementary School. That was my thinking of that. And I'm willing to sort of think about, as long as it is sort of on the budget, once again, understanding that this is not the board's budget, that this is Susan and her staff. At this point, I would like to actually welcome to Susan Austin, who is our new superintendent of Groton, as she started her job January 1st. And so this is her first sort of town-wide budget meeting. And so Susan, I welcome you and take it away.
Thank you. And I welcome all the participants. It looks like we have 29 people, and I think that's fantastic. I would have to say that Dr. Grenier really readied us. We really started working on this budget in October, maybe even September, and looking at what the needs of the district were and what were the real drivers that would indicate what were the needs in our budget. So if I could have your permission to share my screen, I have a couple slides that will help tell this story. So as Kim said, this is really the superintendent's proposed budget. It's a preliminary walkout, and we're working really hard to go through all of our function codes and to really ask questions, honest questions. The board has, in our last meeting, we have about 5 or 6 questions that we're looking at data and we're trying to answer so that we can fine tune this budget and look for all the efficiencies there could be. So as Kim said, the story is this, we started with the Groton 2020, where we were building a new middle school on the top of Fort Hill, aligned to our Fitch High School, right next door to Grasso. And we envisioned this international baccalaureate campus, bringing in a middle years program, which was from 6 to 8 and then 9 and 10. We added a careers program, and we're candidates for that, where we could really have pathways to manufacturing and get our kids really ready for the industry and the STEM-like courses, the STEAM-like courses. So we're very excited about that. We've received the MSAP grant, which is a federal grant for the 2 middle schools when there were 2. And now we've merged into one. So it's one Groton Middle School with a STEAM magnet concept and pathways that start in the middle school and all the way through the high school, with a vision that even looking at the elementary school and really teaching our young children what are the jobs that are out there and how is their work as readers and writers and mathematicians and scientists. What are those kind of jobs that they can look at in their future? It's always been important for to maintain that effective class side, and the board kind of gives us the parameters and the ranges for that each year. We've had the Teachers College, Columbia University Readers Writers Project, and we continue that. It's sustained. The grant has ended, but because of the enormous talent and the professional learning that has gone on and the resources that we've purchased, anybody new to the district gets trained and gets supported by all of that work. So we sustain it. We also have a more rigorous and relevant math curriculum and instruction, and of course, next generation science standards kind of came in right at the same time. So we've basically changed all our K through 12 curriculum in the last 7 years. Again, we're going to have 5 new elementary magnet schools that the parents in this district of elementary children can stay in their kind of neighborhood zone schools, or they can select from any of the 4 other magnet schools with different magnet themes. Everything from environmental science, marine life science at the Thames Magnet, River Magnet, to, to creativity and ingenuity in the Mystic River Magnet, to the discovery at Charles Barnum, which is really based on Renzulli and Reese's work at UConn on enrichment triad model and getting enrichment types of programs into the curriculum. So, that along with our NEA arts program and our CK STEAM program gives parents a lot of nice choices and kids a lot of nice choices to select from. We also want to make sure that we keep our curriculum and extracurricular programs. We upgrade the technology and infrastructure to support the technology now that we have so much technology. And then we have the one-on-one at both the middle school and high school. And literally we have the same at the elementary school as well. We might even have more because we don't like them having to carry it back and forth in their backpack. So we have a treehouse program that has really stepped up to the plate this year with COVID and trying to make sure that our students who don't have a place to go have a place to go on those, off days on the hybrid model. And they have a wonderful summer program and then the before and after school program. And we continue to have the support of our school resource officers who sometimes on Wednesdays go with the administrators and social workers and knock on doors for kids who need to come to school or might have other needs that we need to support them. So it's a wonderful community effort, and especially during this time when the kids need us the most. So this is kind of a broad brushstroke of our budget. Mike used to always say, every school budget's built on these numbers from 100 to 800. And the 100 are the salaries, and the salaries are the drivers. The salaries and the benefits tend to be 3/4 of the budget. And I've got a piece of pie or a pie chart that I can show you, and we see this each year. Originally, when we first did the contractual step increases, we saw more like a 3.1 increase. You see a 2.0 increase, and that's because we were able to find some efficiencies due to the consolidation of our elementary schools, going from 6 to 5. In the 200s, where we're talking about the benefits, we're talking about what we would assume would be a 7% anticipated increase in claims, but it's offset by a reduction in the health insurance reserve. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about that in more detail later on. Our purchase services, where we really have to get services outside what we can provide internally in the school. The property services, where we've noticed a lower experience, like less shoveling of snow and, less rigid temperatures, although this week wouldn't have shown us that, but we have had some efficiencies there as well. 500s are, a lot of different things. They're transportation, insurance. It's also the tuition cost for magnet schools. And we really are looking at that bus transportation, looking for efficiencies there. We no longer are paid for 4 buses through the MSAP grant. So we've had to sustain that. And that's difficult. And going to 5 magnet elementary schools, we're really taking a very close look and doing some real research in this budget to make sure that we can sustain with what we have. There's increased cost in software, and partially because of the remote learning. We received many grants. We received a CARES Act one at the amount of approximately $680,000. We received a COVID-19 relief fund at about $1.2 million. We're anticipating, and it's come out publicly, that we're going to receive a little over $3 million in CARES Act 2. But those funds are all, the purpose of those funds are a response to COVID and a way to really secure that our kids are making gains in all kinds of ways despite COVID. And they are really specific to that. They're a supplement to a budget. They are never to supplant a budget. So we can't take operational costs and put it in those buckets, but we can offer summer programming, tutoring, social work, all kinds of needs that we might have to help support our students with their learning. And then we have supplies, and supplies, our principals were getting in their site budgets early this fall, and we were looking at supplies across the district. And, that's everything from pencil, paper, journals. We had toolkits that we sent home through a grant. So the kids would have a toolkit in school and a toolkit at home. And, anything that they really needed to provided, whether they were total remote or hybrid. And then there was something in here about electrical costs for the new buildings, maybe additional just because of the way the buildings are built and they're larger, and also because at the same time we've got to make a plan together on when the town takes over the three old buildings that we're closing. So, that's something we're going to be having future conversations about, and how we're going to afford those costs. The 700s, really, it seems like, when you look, wow, 52%. But when you see the dollar amount, it's a $47,000 increase in a $90,000 budget. And that's really the networking that has to be done in our district. A lot of networking has happened in the new schools, and then the older buildings, we have to continue to upgrade them so that we can really use all of the technologies that we have for kids. And they're using them more now than ever before. And then, last but not least, when you look at the 800s, there is some fee cost related to the MYP and the careers programs and pathways. And again, it's a $14,000 increase in a $74,000 budget, based on a $74,000 budget. So that's kind of a broad brushstroke of the budget, which comes in at 1.1 at this point. And that, again, thanks to my team in central office, and thanks to Dr. G for getting us going with this. We felt like this was a good place to start with our board. This is that pie that I was talking about, where 3/4 of the pie, a little more than that, is salary and benefits. And all those other categories that I just mentioned fill in the other quarter. So that really, the salaries and benefits are the driver. We also looked at the history of our GPS budget. And there were many years in the past 10 years that we've had 0%. There were some years, I think when Mike first got here, that we needed to, increase to, as far as 2%, I think was the 2.17% was the highest. We were able to bring it below 0 at one point in 2016-17. But when you kind of take an average, and this is just a rough average, so it statistically is about 64% of, annually, if you averaged all those years. And another interesting thing I think we need to keep in mind is that the town has revenues that come into the district to help support education. And the biggest chunk of that is really our taxpayers. And when you see the town needs $48 million, $460,520, or 61.9%, is paid by our taxpayers. The other revenue sources that come in are the excess cost, the state grants, impact aid, and we're going to talk about that a later time to give you more information about impact aid that comes directly to the town. You have special education excess cost, Medicare, Medicaid, and so all of those, all of those revenues that come in from these other sources, whether it's the federal government or the state, amount to $29,778,510, which gives us that over $78 million budget request, our 1.1 increase that we're looking at. So Congressman Courtney came, and I don't know if you saw it, it was on Facebook too, but he came to share with us the Impact Aid Coronavirus Relief Act that really started from Groton and Ledyard. So we actually had someone in our business office who was recognizing she wasn't able to get the numbers. It's all based on how many military connected, on federal property, people who worked on federal property, lived on federal property, we're in Groton, and Groton really hosts the largest amount, and we really get the biggest impact aid check in Connecticut. And it came from our business office, an administrative assistant who said, I'm reaching out to people and I'm just not getting the feedback. I'm not getting people to respond or to fill in the forms that are necessary. And so she brought it to Mike's attention and my attention. And we also talked to the superintendent in Ledyard, and he was finding the same thing. So this Relief Act was based on the influence of COVID and not being able to get the actual numbers that we needed. And so it went through Congress, it went through Senate, and and it was approved in December. And so we actually have a framed picture, and I just have to figure out where to put it. But it was signed into law, and it allows us to use the student count information from last year for this year's funding. And we know in the past several years, we'll talk to you about the specifics of that, but we typically get about $3.3 million from this impact aid that goes directly to the town. Past couple of years, they've given us checks that superseded that and also go to the town. So while we might count on that 3.3 or 3.4 annually, we really, the town was able to benefit from that. So it's something that we take really seriously. We feel that this is what our military children really help to support the town, and those people who serve in the military help to support, because they don't pay taxes necessarily. You know, they might pay taxes in other states and other towns. And so this is the way that the federal government takes care of those, towns like ours. So these were some of the major things, and I've got Ken Knight here, and was hoping that he could assist me with going through several of these topics. Looking at the health reserve account, I know that everybody's very interested in looking at that. It's pretty healthy this year because people haven't been able to take their ordinary, procedures, or because of COVID, so we do see some efficiencies there, and but we know that they will, after COVID, they will be back and they will take care of those things. So we have to be very careful in using a health reserve account. Ken, did you want to say something more to that, or do you have a slide that you'd like to show?
I do have a slide, but I think what you said is exactly right. There was a lot of postponement of procedures and doctor visits that we have to be careful with the reserve and not use up what would have been spent on those procedures. So I think you got it exactly right. I have a slide with a whole bunch of numbers. Whether or not we want to go over that, I'll leave that up to you.
And the other thing is too, that all this presentation, along with the other slides to back it up, we can send out to everybody as well. Kim, what do you think? Do you think it's important to look at those numbers?
Hi, I'm looking at faces. I don't see anyone who wants to see them necessarily, but once again, we can get them sent out, or we can actually make sure that they're on the website so that people can have access to them, unless someone wants to see it. Patrice?
No, I think it would be better to have them so we could take a look at them and examine them up close and then come back to you with questions rather than, I like the broad overview at this point. Thank you very much for asking.
Well, and I think that one of the things we do come back to the town council, and we will come back with more details to the RTM, and that's something that we can certainly look at. But we have used some of those funds to bring our 3.1 budget that was driven by those salaries down to 1.1. So, but we're just being cautious right now because we feel like we have to be very careful in taking too much of that. We want to be mindful of that. And then, Ken, would you like to speak to the workers' comp, or Lori, and the projected retirements? Right now, we know there are 3. There may be others further down the line, but now we know that there are 3. And oftentimes most of the time when you have a retirement and a teacher who's been, a well-trained teacher has been with us for many years and is making a top salary, when they leave, we tend to hire back teachers who are younger and newer in those areas that we can, so that there's a cost savings or a cost efficiency with that.
I guess the only thing I'd add, Susan, is on the workers' compensation. That's another we're another self-insured plan, just like the health insurance, self-insured plan that we share with the town. This past year, we had very good experience, partially because people weren't in the schools for a part of the time, but we've been tracking a little bit better. So we will have a reduction in the workers' compensation reserve amount that we have to pay this coming year in FY22.
And is there a slide for that as well, Ken?
Not for workers' compensation, no. Sorry.
Okay. Well, we could address it if people have questions about it.
Yep.
Now, I talked to John Burt. We were able to meet this week, and he was asking about the CIPs, and the town has all of our CIP requests from last year. We had reviewed it a while back with the board, so we'll be talking to them more about that. But he actually asked us to prioritize, and Sam and Ken and Lori and I met, and we really looked at the existing buildings that would be needed to, that we needed to take care of. For instance, Charles Barnum needs a new roof, and we can only go so long without, doing that. I know that the town also has a task force looking at the fields and the needs, really prioritizing Fitch. So there was this interest in lighting on the middle school fields, the new middle school fields, and looking at the field houses and really upgrading some of those facilities. So that was there. I know NEA, Sam has done a great job with his crew, really trying to correct the air quality issue, and has put up a report from Fuss and O'Neill on the website talking about that, but has really come up with a good system that kind of heats the air and dries it, and circulates it and conditions the air. So that for both NEA and CK, that was a good solution, but we're really monitoring it carefully. So there might be some excavation work. I don't know if you want to talk to that, Sam, but there's something that we need to do because, as you know, NEA is kind of built near wetlands, so it gets a little swampy. So there are some landscaping things that we can do to make that better. Anything else, Sam? Did I do that okay?
Oh, you did terrific. If I can just address the excavation at Northeast Academy. Yes, it's true that the Fuss and O'Neill report regarding the air quality at Northeast Academy, the humidity problem there, we were able to address that as Susan described earlier, but there are also the grounds around the building are extremely wet, and many times of the year the playground is actually not accessible because of the amount of water that's on those fields. So, and they also thought that some of the humidity may be coming up through the slab in that particular building. So they've given us some recommendations regarding doing some French drains or curtain drains around that building. So that's what our, it looks like $215,000 that we've asked for doing some of that excavation work this coming year. In addition to that, of course, the money for Fitch High School is for regrading the football field, putting a crown back in the football field. And the reason that's it may be on hold is because if this field committee is going to be doing something with that, the question will be for the town council, RTM, will be, do we want to spend the $200,000 to do that to the field if in fact something else may be taking place fairly soon on that field. The Charles Barnum roof is beyond its life expectancy. We do repair it often. And so that is, again, a state reimbursable project. We'd get roughly 50% back on that project. And that's a $900,000 project. And the last item, again, is kind of in limbo. And that's the request for the lighting project, $825,000 for the lighting project at the Groton Middle School to do the artificial turf field and the softball field there. And again, in that particular case, we're going to be sending a letter to the Permanent School Building Committee requesting that they take a look at the unexpended funds from the Groton Middle School and see whether they would be agreeable to using some of those funds or at least recommending to the town council that some of those funds be used to put the lights on those fields. Putting lights on those two fields would increase the use of those fields. You could have middle school programs immediately after school, and then high school games could take place later in the evening in the fall as it gets darker earlier as we go on into the season. So those are the 4 items that we have on the CIP list.
Thank you, Sam. And that's something else that we can get you that specific information that he was referring to. We have a slide for that too. The next thing I had mentioned the impact aid funding. Was there a specific number that had come in recently that gets to go to the town or has already gone to the town, Ken?
So yeah, just last week we received another wire from the Department of Education for impact aid. So right now we're sitting at for FY21 we received 3.941 million. And so we had budgeted, I think it was 3.2, between 3.2 and 3.3. So we've exceeded the budget for this year. And it's actually a very similar number to what we received last year. And that makes sense because they're basing this year on last year's numbers. So I think that's all we should expect for this year. Although the way impact aid works is they continue, if there's still funding, they'll continue to look back at years that haven't been finalized, and we could be getting additional funding on some of the years that haven't been finalized. I think 19 and 20 are still open, but at this time it's 3.9 million.
And then there's something we call Department of Defense Supplemental Impact Aid Account. And that is typically in a check that comes for about approximately $250,000 each year. And that has really been the source of our one-to-one initiative and our growth in technology. And 7 years ago, I'll never forget, talking about Fitch High School students having one-to-one computers and creating a tech plan that would support that. And it came with infrastructure. And, you know, we were hearing loud and clear from our community that the front end projectors weren't necessarily working as well as they should. So we had quite an extensive plan to upgrade all of our technology, and we've been doing it year to year using those funds. So, you know, I think it's been a really good cause. I mean, that's really monies because we have the large military community, and that's those are supplies and technology and equipment that go right into the hands of our kids. So, and then the review of January public hearing, you've already heard it from Sam. You know, he talked about the air quality. That was one of the questions that we had gotten. So that kind of rounds us up to our board's mission of teaching and learning and providing dynamic, with goals of providing dynamic, rigorous curriculum, ensuring effective, engaging instruction, embracing excellent learning environments, and then a belief statement that we cultivate an environment of diversity, equity, and inclusion in this town and in this city and in, you know, Groton Public Schools. So very proud to serve and would really love to get people's feedback.
Can you stop sharing so we can see people's faces?
I would love to.
Thank you. That's for Rita.
Thank you, Rita, for the reminder.
So we will be doing, Susan and Ken, is it safe to say that once it becomes the board's budget, we will have a more formal presentation that we'll give to the town council and then give to the RTM so that you'll have what we have done so that you know sort of where we land. That once again, I think it's just important that you kind of hear sort of where Susan and her staff are coming from and where the board has done. Also, Susan, not only have you designated the magnet elementary themes and which school is going to be which. But my understanding is that staff has already begun or have almost completed, which staff goes to where, and the board has been able to kind of look at sort of where we've been able to make some adjustments or some efficiencies around that. And we've already done that part of the budget. We haven't voted on it, but we've done that part of the budget.
Right.
And also, just Susan, a clarification, you talked about that we're going to have to talk to the town eventually about sort of once we get our elementary schools up, our new elementary schools up and running, to go through the process of passing the buildings over to the town.
Yes.
Town side, is that it really is going to be SB Butler and Cloudchester that that the board voted. I don't remember when, but we voted that we are going to keep Mary Morrison alive because it seemed to have been, Sam, I think we're going to use your words, it had the best bones. We're thinking about using that in terms of a more permanent location for the robotics, because as you know, we've had some hard time finding a place for the robotics to kind of land on a more permanent basis. And then also, if in case we got a influx of people, and most likely it would be on the military end, we have a school that we could then open up for that. So just a clarification is that Mary Morrison will continue to be in the auspices of the Board of Ed, where we would be looking at the two other buildings, SB Butler and Cloudchester, as passing on to the town. Sorry, I'm going to continue to talk. So just to let people know that we are looking at another grant. It has not been sent, and so we obviously don't know if we're going to get it or not, or has it been sent, but we don't know. And that is to look to support. And if Susan, if you can kind of talk about that for a second, that would be great.
Actually, we wrote 2 different grants last year with the help of Shannon Weigel, who supports us. One was the Department of Defense STEM grant, and in the tune of $3 million. They actually have 2. One is $3 million and one is $6 million. And we received a lot of great feedback, but they only selected 12 different grants and only one from a district. And it was a district in Florida with, 10 times as many kids as we have. So, but because we got that good feedback, we decided to resubmit. And Shannon has put in the white papers. We've worked with Learn. We've worked with the manufacturing pipeline people. We've worked with our staff. And it really is going to be a partnership, a regionalized grant that will support our kids going through the manufacturing pipeline and the STEM fields to support their growth. And it is a grant that really is for middle school and high school with these pathways and, supporting with counselors, being able to share information so our kids really know what's happening in Groton. I don't know that they always know all that is available to them. And it's really important to me that families and kids know that what we have to offer so that they can plan for that. So, that white paper was sent in and we're waiting anxiously to hear. I'm feeling very hopeful, but you just never know with these things. And then the other is a DODEA STEM. And as you know, we've had a literacy, we've had a math, we've had another STEM DODEA. So this would be a DODEA STEM. And it also looks at, it had a health and a nutrition kind of slant. You got 10 extra points for that. So looking at our nursing program that certifies kids, not that many kids can be part of that. So we really want to enhance that and grow that program. And, one of the things in the first grant I spoke about was NROTC. And I've had students come to me and create surveys. And through that survey found out we have at least 2/3 of our kids who have spoken to be curious about having an ROTC, a naval ROTC program. So that first grant would help support that initiative as well. So very excited to hear more about this, and I will keep everybody posted.
So that's where we are. We've been kind of busy, A little bit. Also on our website, Susan's staff has done a phenomenal job at doing frequently asked questions around COVID stuff. And so feel free to kind of do that. The board, both at our meetings and then also in writing, people have been asking a lot about stuff that's on our website. And
We've also, can I add this, Kim, we've also posted our cohorts. And so there is a little bit of out of balance where a cohort hasn't been in person as often. So we are working on a plan to kind of adjust that. And we're looking, in our future to really grow our cohorts so that gradually, we'll get everybody back in full. So that is something we're working hard on. And we kind of took a tumble because of the escalating numbers that happened in our area after the holidays and put us in kind of remote only. But, we're really hoping to get back and get everyone back. And I know with the promise of a vaccine and teachers being the next in line, hopefully, that's going to really help get our kids back to school in full time. So that's our mission.
So I didn't want Susan and I to, and actually any of the board members, feel free to kind of interrupt me and talk, but so that's sort of where we're at. And I don't know if this has generated questions or does this help you when you think about what we're looking at? I mean, right now you see that the superintendent's budget is 1.1. We haven't voted on ours on it yet, but she's coming in at 1.1, which I think is, what I always am cautious about is the fact is that she and her staff have already done the low hanging fruit. And so for us to sort of move to a smaller number, it means that we are going to do some stuff. But as you can see, the district has really been trying very hard to make sure that we're meeting the needs of students and looking at grants and looking at ways at supporting an educational format. So I will love to hear about what the other bodies are thinking about.
I had just a quick question. The CIPs, you mentioned 4. Are those your top 4, the priority CIPs, or are you going to go further into those 4 and pick 1 or 2?
Well, I guess we can prioritize even the priorities. So, we can certainly kind of rate them. And we've kind of done that in our own mind as well. I think that roof is pretty important, but if we had to wait a year, we'd have to wait a year. And then certainly the town is, I think, very interested in getting our fields. I think those lights on the field are really going to give our kids more playtime. And I think, we have this beautiful field. We'd love to use it. And I think that task force probably would support that,
I also think that the board needs to kind of go back to the CIPs.
Yes,
that was a long time ago, and we've done a couple of things since then. And so I think that the board needs to kind of take a look at that as well, along with the staff. And Susan, I put it in our budget calendar to kind of look at our CIPs.
Yeah, we can do that, certainly.
Thank you. I see Councilor Melendez has his hand up.
Yay.
Thank you. Yes, I just have a clarifying question on the 200 account savings. Is that you are using like some fund balance that you had saved up from the past in order to achieve that? Is that what that is?
Yes, it's the health reserve. And so we've used a portion of the health reserve to help support bringing that budget down from 3.1 to 1.1. But I was just saying, this year, it seemed to be having extra funds in it, but I know that the caution is that it's because people haven't been able to use those, that health savings account in the same way with COVID. So we know that in the future they will. So we have to just be cautious about using those funds. I don't know if Ken or Lori, if you'd like to add to that, you guys are much more astute with that health savings account.
I think you said it well.
Lori's always our caution too. So Lori's always saying, we have to do this with great care.
Yeah, so we anticipate an increase that will come at a later point when people are able to resume their procedures, which many have put on hold during the COVID period. So while it's been lower experience than what we had anticipated, we anticipate that that will come back at a larger scale in a future year, if not next year, the year after, or both. So that's where we're trying to be extra cautious. While we've looked at using some of that excess this year, that is money that we will have to fund back at some point in order to shore up future claims.
Okay, and just one follow-up question. In your opinion, do you feel like the reserves is in a healthy spot? Do you feel like you're historically low, historically high?
I would say that it looks pretty, really pretty healthy at this point. Otherwise, we wouldn't have even taken what we took. But Ken, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree. The reserve. I looked at the history, and it kind of goes up and down. I think we're at a higher spot than we would typically see it, and so that's part of why we're doing what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I see another hand raised.
Right, I didn't know if we were taking turns, or do you want all counselors to go first? Then we'll go to.
To be honest with you, I'm never that structured, but I know, surprise. I feel really comfortable with the three bodies working together, and so as questions come, I would be more than happy to have them get answered.
Great, Counselor Bordelon.
Thank you. First, I just wanted to thank you for getting together tonight. And definitely, Mrs. Austin, I'm really excited to have you on board and excited to hear the words ROTC. I know that I've come many times speaking about that. Growing up here and my children being also military dependents, the need for that. And so I think it's the right time and the right town for it. So that is very welcomed, and I'm excited, and I'd love to be part of the process.
Good.
As far as your health savings fund, I appreciate your caution with that fund. Working in the medical field and looking at the numbers, our numbers are down because you guys have the money. So colonoscopies, endoscopies, and procedures are not happening. Preventative care, as we remember, the state was shut down and not doing those. And now we're back up and running, and it's been slow, but it's starting to increase due to the fact that people are getting their second shots and what have you. So we're seeing the decrease because companies are holding because people haven't had them. So that is going to come up. So I definitely agree. You definitely want to err on the side of caution with that and act later. So I can appreciate that. As far as the Title I funding, where do we stand as far as those numbers? And if you don't have them tonight, I was just curious. And a caveat to that was West Side was identified as a Title I school at one point. How do we fare as our new middle school? Are we still considered a Title I at this rate, or with the consolidation of one, and which is one of the beautiful things that I am excited to see in this town after living through the separation of three different middle schools and the merge to the high school. It's nice to have all the economic differences, inequalities all in one building. So I'm just curious, where do we stand on Title I funds that are coming in?
So Title I funds typically are about $1 million, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. And the three schools that are identified as Title I schools are the Groton Middle School, Catherine Kolnowski, and Claude Chester. But I always portion out a good chunk of that for all of our other schools because we have children in need across the district. So while those three schools might get some extra funds, I want to make sure that all of our schools have the opportunity to have that additional Title I funding. So we've done that for a number of years since I've been here. And there's also a Title II that really thinks about or focuses on professional learning, and especially in the area of social emotional learning. And we've had a Dr. Mari Wrightington who ran Hope Academy, and she is amazing. She came to us when we were first restructuring our academy programs, and she's worked with them closely. And she's also reached out so that we have a QBI, Quality Behavioral Response Program, in all our buildings. So with her consulting, I feel like we're in a much better place today, and we continue that. And Title III is for our EL students specifically. And we receive additional funds in Title IV, which has brought us additional social work, and in central office where we have our kind of alternative Apex program. We've gotten some arts and culinary and farm to school. So we've been able to really add some things that would really engage kids. But we watched that, and actually the CARES Act was based on the Title I funding. The first CARES Act at 680,000 approximately, and the second CARES Act, which was reported in the paper to be 9 million, but we haven't found that. We think it's 3 million. But I was hoping Ken would find that when he called the state.
And my last piece to that was with that, it's really great that we've had free lunch for all.
Yes.
And one of the other things I've been very passionate about, with the ROTC program, I think Groton, we could and we should consider making lunch and food available to all students in this town post-COVID, if possible. I know at one time you guys looked at the numbers, and at that time you guys did not vote to fund it several years ago. And well, I see Lee's shaking her head. I might be saying it wrong. I don't have my notes in front of me, but whatever it was, the number came before us, and at the time it didn't move. We did have it for certain areas and not for all. But if we could consider looking at that and really
we really do.
Consider a way to continue to offer free lunch to all of our students in Groton. I know some of our neighbor towns have it, and the need post-COVID, is going to be just as great. And so that's one thing I'd love to see continue to go forward. But with that, I want to thank you for all your hard work. And it's definitely tough to be a working parent with children home that are homeschooling. So the devices, Ian and I both are working, and we both have 2 kids attending. And I know the parents' concerns from the financial aspect of making sure the kids have a good education. Friends have said, well, I have younger kids and I have to find a babysitter. And I say I have teenagers who I feel, need even more direction because they're not getting on to, the things. So I appreciate the work that you guys have put in, and any more efforts in collaboration to support working families that are not home and not able to, that are frontline workers that aren't able to quarantine during this time, are needing the support and help on how to navigate through this. So any funding that you guys can get to support those families that aren't home during working and school hours, there is a greater need. Let it be some online tutorials or other things, because parents I think are finding they need the support on how to navigate the schooling. Before the parents sent the kids to school, the teachers did that, and now the parents are having to work through this curriculum. And so I look at the income disparities and think of the families who English is not their first language, or there's education, or income gaps where families aren't achieving and they're struggling. So I appreciate all your help and any funding in that area.
And we look to really grow those cohorts and to provide the additional tutoring and not wait till summer school, but we will have summer school. But we really want to make sure that we have credit recovery for kids who might have failed a course because they were disconnected or just needed more time or whatever. So we are absolutely looking at that and planning for that kind of in the immediate future.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Portia.
I see Sima.
Yeah, thank you. I can't figure out how to make a little yellow hand raise up, or any kind of hand for that matter. I just had a quick question, which is about the field lighting project, which I think you had suggested might be in the $800,000 range. I didn't get the actual number, but I was wondering if that was going to be LED, if you've had conversations with Groton Utilities, if there's any opportunity to perhaps have some cost sharing with the utility on that.
I'll refer to Sam on that one.
Yeah, we haven't talked to Groton Utilities yet about that, and we just our estimate is based on another school system within the state that had just done a similar project. But yes, we will use as energy efficient lighting as we possibly can if we're allowed to do it. Yes.
Councilor Baumgartner has his hand up if there's no one else.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you so much, Superintendent Austin, for your in-depth presentation. I know today is obviously your first budget meeting, and just want to congratulate you on your efforts. You're doing yeoman's work, considering you're taking the helm at a time when we're knee-deep in the pandemic. So thank you for your leadership and your, as well as your outstanding support team as well.
Yes, it is teamwork, isn't it?
Absolutely. Teamwork makes the dream work, as they say.
That's right. That's right.
But I do have several questions with respect to kind of how Groton Public Schools is navigating the pandemic. Obviously, you know, the pandemic did expose that there are significant inequities in our community. Far too many students within our school districts in our school district did not have access to high-speed internet. In some cases, didn't even have a computer. And I know you and the Board of Education prioritized that early on the onset of the pandemic to ensure that every student was equipped with a computer. So again, thank you for that. My question is obviously each school year, new kids come into the school. And so does the school district have the resources and tools in place to ensure that in the case a new student comes into into our community that may not have the financial resources to acquire a computer or have internet, that they have those tools to fully participate in the remote learning?
Well, I think what you're referring to is really the sustainability of what we've been able to do. You know, out of this pandemic has come this silver lining of, making sure that we had the best equipment, the best curriculum, the best instruction during these times. And it doesn't look like the face-to-face education that we've always known and loved. It's slightly different, but we want to take those things that we've learned that have really engaged kids and continue to do them. So the sustainability plan, I think, because we have that DoD supplemental fund that we always know that we can really go back to that. So we typically use that for the 9th graders coming in to, have them take that Chromebook all the way through to their 12th grade year. The hot spots were really valuable. And I've seen some of the work you've talked about doing where maybe even neighborhoods can have more internet access, which would be terrific. The hotspots did work, but I think every family, if you have more than 2, 3, 4 people working on an internet, there are times when people freeze up and it can be frustrating for kids. It can be frustrating for teachers. So, it's not a perfect science, the whole thing. So, but I do think we have to keep that in mind, and we have to sustain. The state provided us with over 1,000 Dell computers at the high school, and we've used those. Our freshman class got those computers this year because the Chromebooks were taking so long to get from overseas. So I think we have to keep revising our tech plan and finding funds. And like this year in operations, we're really looking at the network. So that was one of the big buckets that we focused on. And that was the equipment cost that I kind of reviewed with you. So each year you kind of look at what you have and where are the needs. And in a 5-year plan, not just year to year, but in a 5-year spread plan. So thank you for that question.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for your answer. And on that note, I know there are 4 CIPs that the Board of Education will be requesting. Are there any that are not included in kind of this year's ask that you may would, obviously there's wants versus needs, but and I think in some years even, the Board of Education has put in requests for needs that have not necessarily been funded. So, my question is, if you were to make any amendments to your your CIP asks, are there any on this side of technology and software that could help close that gap that you've been discussing?
Well, I think that gap has really been supported by the state with this CARES Act and the COVID Relief Fund, and they've really supported our work and the software that we've been able to provide for our students But I would have to say that, Groton is in a really good place. That Groton 2020, we have this brand new middle school on the hill, International Baccalaureate campus. We have these 2 new magnet schools coming up, on the west side and on the Cutler side, but they're Thames River Magnet and the Mystic River. And so that really just leaves our Charles Barnum as one of the older schools built in the 60s. It was a blue ribbon school, we're really proud of it. And then we have the Catherine Kolnowski and the Northeast Academy that were just built, a decade ago. So I feel like we're in a really good place, and the work that was done on Fitch High School, that those CIPs often are for really buildings that have, are older and need to have roofs and, and new heating equipment or ventilation. So I feel like we're in a pretty good spot, and we'll monitor the ventilation and the air quality in both CK and Northeast. And if we needed something more, we would absolutely come back. Whoops.
And last question, it's partially budget related. I've had a lot of conversations with families in Brantford Manor and Groton Estates who have inquired about the placement of elementary school children for next year. And many were wondering if it would be possible that they would attend the new elementary school that was being built, especially considering the close walking distance. So I wasn't sure where the Board of Education was at with that plan, but if you had any information on that, I know there are some families who have been asking.
So we've really mapped out, with the help of Malone and McBroom, kind of a map that an interactive map that is on the website, so families can see where their designated area school. We said neighborhood, but the neighborhoods have gotten bigger because we have fewer schools. But there are some hashtag areas that are some of those walkers that can start coming to the new elementary schools if they so desire. There's also that lottery process. So that's a great opportunity that they can, sign up for the lottery. And at this point, we need 604 students in each of the schools. So there's room in those schools for kids to come back from magnet schools over the bridge and come back to their, schools in their side of town or whatever. So, we do have room in that magnet process for kids who are walkers and want to go to one of those new schools, and through the lottery process.
Susan, to that question, who should any one of us direct in the district about questions about walking or magnet schools if they're confused? Is there a person that is designated as a...
I would start with the registrar, because in the registrar's office, they have that information. But if the registrar can't answer it, she will find someone else who has more in-depth knowledge.
Okay, that's great information, I think, for all to have. Thank you.
No further questions. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Would you like me to recognize Representative Whitney?
That'd be great. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It's very informative, as are the responses and the questions themselves. I just had a request that doesn't need to be answered right now, but I think it'd be a good idea vis-a-vis the CARES Act to have a companion narrative that goes with the budget that describes what the CARES Act has been used for this year, what funds might be, my guess is it all has to be applied to this current budget year, not the one we're budgeting for. But it does probably have implications in terms of equipment purchased or other decisions made for the coming budget year. I just think, much like you do with the DoD grants, where it's broken down what this is used for, right, how it's spent, and the amounts. I think that'll be very helpful with the CARES Act, both of them. Because I think a lot of questions in the RTM are going to come up surrounding that, and probably the town council too. So that's a request. You need to answer it now, but that's...
Well, what's that? It's all done.
It's already done, because that's what we have asked the whole time is that if we're getting money from the CARES Act, how is it being spent? So absolutely, that can be...
We do have slides on that, and actually when you receive this slideshow, because we had used parts of this for the public hearing, there are slides in here that talk specifically to the CARES Act and to all of the different grants and what they were used for. I think with any grants, the thing that we have to keep in mind is thou shalt not supplant. So you really, you really have to earmark those funds for supplemental funds that, and in our case this year that were really directly COVID related or based on this remote learning and accelerated learning. So providing extra supports for our students. So, but I think you'll see in the slideshow that those are really spelled out, and I can certainly share that with the group when I come back to the town council and the RTM.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We have another counselor with a question. Counselor Franco.
Hi, thank you. And welcome to the position.
Thank you.
I love the presentation, and I just had a question at the end of it. There were some pictures of like students in the classroom. Is that from the new middle school photos?
Yes, yes.
Very state of the art. I haven't been able to tour it, but it looks
want
gorgeous.
everybody to be able to tour it. It is like magnificent.
It looks gorgeous and state of the art, and it looks like a photo out of a magazine. I mean,
I know.
I'm very excited that our kids are learning in such an atmosphere. I'm one that sort of needs to see all the numbers in writing, and we'll dig through it and make my notes and then come back with questions. So that's probably where I will be. I'll come back to you later, and maybe if I need to send.
And we'll provide those budget books. Once this becomes the Board of Ed's budget, and we fine tune those numbers to get them where we want them to be, that will go out, and people will be able to scrutinize it. And the board is doing that now, and they're providing me a lot of insight and asking for some data. And, that's how we make progress, and we fine tune and we make it even better. So.
Right. So I'm just gonna wait on that part for the budget to ask a lot of budget questions. I do have a CIP question, and it might be for Mr. Kilpatrick. I know that there has been still some asbestos that has to be removed from the high school. Has that been, what's going on with that, and possibly funding on that?
Yeah, that project, the funding for that was approved not last year, but the year before that, I believe. And then we put both of those, we had two separate numbers for the high school because we were originally going to do it in 2 years, which makes it difficult to run programs at the high school. So we wanted to put it all in 1 year. So you were kind enough to approve the $518,000 to do it all in 1 year. So as a matter of fact, Ken and I, Ken doing most of the work, submitting this to the state. We were just submitting it as of the 2nd. Yesterday, we started to submit that. I had a conversation with our architect again today. He had a form that he needed to fill out. And I believe there was one more form that Ken and I needed to fill out to complete the package. So that's in. If that's approved by the state, we will put it out to bid and plan on doing that project this summer.
And we have the new Groton Middle School that can host our summer program too, and other things that we need. So to have both of those buildings, in limbo last summer would have never worked, trying to get the middle school up and then have the high school shut down. So there's just too much that happens in the summer. So we're glad we're going to be able to do it this summer.
Right. So when you're doing an asbestos project, you're not allowed to have anybody 18 and under in the building. So our guidance department, those in administration would have to move over to the middle school or to the central office if it weren't this, if we didn't have that building. They'll have to move over there so that kids will be able to come in and do their summertime work.
Okay, and then that's it for the asbestos up there. We're all good for now?
That will take care of all of the areas that have been identified with asbestos containing floor tiles. Yes.
Okay.
There may still be some in walls, in plumbing, things like that, but nothing within an area that a student or a staff member would be in.
Okay. I also hope that with all our new schools, as you had said, that many of the students will come back to Groton. And use these lovely schools. And I'm glad you're applying for grants, and I think that's wonderful. I do just want to throw this out there because we are talking budget, and that's the purpose of our meeting.
Right.
Our memory from our budget year last year, when we had this conversation, was we approved an increase in the budget, and this is from my viewpoint. But we were told, and actually we had said, or at least I had said, that for next year, there wouldn't be an increase. And it was agreed upon that if we gave an increase last year, that this year that there wasn't going to be an increase. So that's just sort of a memory in my mind at the moment because of the middle school and all the cost savings that we would have. I do see some of the numbers you're showing, and the Board of Ed's going to get it. So I'll still wait. But I just wanted to reiterate a memory that I had. But on a final note, I just wanted to state that this is the last year my youngest will be in a Groton Public School student. He's at Fitch and a senior, and he's 100% virtual, and it's the craziest year ever. But I will say, I know some parents are having a very difficult time. I can only speak for myself and my child, who is very social, I would say, and is doing really well. So, because he doesn't have so many distractions right now. So he's doing very well. And I know the teachers are giving everything that they have to help everybody that's doing the 100% virtual. And I couldn't thank all the teachers enough for everything that they're doing. And I know it's hard to juggle both in, the kids in school and the kids that are outside of school. And at least for my son, I can speak and say, I'm delighted how they've handled this year. So thank you very much.
Our kids are certainly very resilient, and our families have certainly supported them, in all kinds of ways. So we're appreciative too.
All right. Thank you.
I don't know if there are any other RTM members. If not, Councilor Melendez wanted to speak.
I don't see any other RTM members at this point.
Thank you. Councilor Melendez?
Thank you. Yeah, I remember what Councilor Franco was saying about it was an increase came when the budget came to us, but didn't we vote it flat in the end? We cut it to where it was the previous year.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Wasn't this slide that was just up showing the increase for last year?
I think the slide, I'd have to look at it again, but I thought it was 0 the last year, or for FY20.
We went flat. We've been flat.
0.
Maybe it was the previous year I'm thinking of?
Yes.
It might have
Well,
been.
it's 0.
Well,
So, Rachel,
the chart is
independent-
on here, and I'll make sure you get the chart so you can kind of look at it.
I get it. In the
Thank
pandemic,
you.
everything is kind of blending together. So I get that. But we've been pretty flat.
Sort of is. I'm thinking of the previous year when we sat at the annex. That's what I can remember. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I don't see any hands raised. Oh, there's one. Portia.
Yeah, I just have one more question. I know you spoke about the nursing program. I too had benefited from that program, and it's a phenomenal program, and it was a limited number of students. So I am excited to see that you're going to fund and support that and expand that. With that, I know you were part of the meeting in the city, and I've often spoken about like having some more readiness skills jobs for students who do not plan to attend college or not are college bound, and they know that now, and that partnership with EB and getting them into some apprentice type works, like some of these seniors even now that are have an off block, could start to look at some of these programs. And so any partnerships that we can do to really fund and get these students that may take a gap year or two but are job ready and have that readiness. They might not want to be a nurse, but something in welding or manufacturing down there. I know they're short staffed and in need. And so I just think that we could, if we could offer, and like I said, I did benefit from the nursing program and still in the medical field. And it was a great, great program for me to go through. So,
well, and it can only host so many because of the internship. So thinking down the road of really expanding that so that more young people can get that certification, because then they can actually do something with it even right after they take that course and are complete. So we are looking at partnerships in all these grants. They really require the partnerships. So we've talked to quite a few partners. There's a few naval labs and the Thames River project, and we're coordinating with Learn as our support person, our support, because it's kind of an area that will provide for other RESC districts that host military students. So we're excited about it.
Thank you, Susan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing any other counselors' hands.
I just would like to ask Susan to explain how it's determined whether or not a school receives free lunches. Right now, everybody is receiving free lunches, I think, throughout the whole country. But how is it determined? It has nothing to do with a board vote.
No, we have to really fill out this application, and it's the number of free and reduced lunch in a building. So it has to be, and Sam, you might recall this, I think it was like 65% would be free and reduced. I know Claude was one of the first schools, and Catherine Kolnowski and Westside, and they happen to be our Title I schools too. So it's kind of a similar formula that we use for Title I. But you know, I know that Ernie Koshmeter, who really runs the enterprise program for our school nutrition program, he really keeps himself abreast of the laws and the funding sources. And our goal really is to continue down the road with, you know, that full, nutrition program for all. But it is an application, and it is about the numbers and counting the numbers. So this year was wonderful because we, families didn't have to fill out the forms. We were able to, because of COVID, have this program for all of our kids. And he also does it, as you know, in the summertime. So we don't want our kids hungry. Our kids need the nutrition. That's how they, that's a fundamental basic need. So.
Lee?
I wanted to let you know that a couple of years ago, when Katrina and I were very, very much interested in getting free lunch breakfast for all our kids, Patrice had worked very hard for Grasso to do that. And I learned a lot from that. And we are on that all the time. We do want that for all our kids.
If I may just comment to that, because that was the thing that I had brought up. What I was referring to is one of the meetings I went to, and I remember them saying they're waiting on the numbers, and the numbers had come back in Westside, and the schools that were identified were the ones that qualified at the time. And then there was talk about, what about the other schools that didn't meet those numbers? In other districts, you can choose to, as a board, possibly to look and get a grant outside of that program, or just choose to fund that program for the whole district. And that's what I was asking. Is there a way outside of that program that we could choose to fund it for the whole district? Or is there another grant we could go for?
Portia, I think that's actually a really good question. And I think, you know what, I agree. I remember that meeting.
Yeah, I do too.
And I can't remember sort of the details around sort of the monies. I think money was a big, huge issue. And, and one of the things that I want to make sure that we all understand is that the board has worked really hard at making sure that we give our students the best that we can. And and they've worked really hard on getting grants. In fact, the board over this past year approved a data person so that we could really get the information really quickly, so that when we apply for grants, apply for programs, we have the information really quickly and we can do that. At some point, if we all want all of those things, people are going to have to understand that our budget might have to increase in order to be able to meet that need. But Portia, I think we need to get that information about the free reduced lunch and what does that mean, so at least you know how we got to that information. And I'll make sure that Susan and her staff get to that.
We'll get the details for sure.
So currently in this budget, though, it's not included to fully fund it outside of the.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's
thank
correct.
you.
That's correct. Listen, folks, thank you.
Thank you all.
I really just appreciate the fact that people are invested in all that we do in the community. Actually, I wish people would realize about how many people are willing to kind of sit around the Zoom and
All day long.
and think about our district. And thank you once again for partnering with the board. We look forward. We look forward to all the budget meetings that we're going to have with you. And also, I'm just really excited about the story to continue to tell you as we put online 2 brand new tech savvy elementary schools. And that's really because we all shared the vision of what 2020 is, and we all should be very proud of that. If there's no further comments, I think that I would love to say this is not quite the Harry Watson meeting because it's an hour and a half. But I am going to say that I think that a job well done. And if you guys have any more questions that you think could be helped, Rachel, once again, I know that you like to have the numbers in front of you and but if you say, hey, could someone kind of give me information about that? That would be really helpful for the board so that our staff can be prepared when we do meet with you once it becomes our budget. But once again, you guys, thank you. Thank you for partnering with us. And I really appreciate the collaborative approach. Thank you.
I will make sure that you all receive the slideshow and the backup data. So at least you have that to start with.
Thank you.
And I promise to work better. I can't promise perfection, but I'll work better on making sure that the meeting notices get out right and we get them out on time. So Lauren, I know that you had a finance committee meeting for the RTM, and so I'm glad that you were here just for a second. And I'm sorry that my lack of communication to the rest of the bodies didn't happen. So thank you for showing. Once again, guys, thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting us. Appreciate that. Is there a motion to adjourn, Town Council?
Motion to adjourn.
Baumgartner.
Motion to adjourn, Board of Ed.
Motion to adjourn. Say goodnight,
All right.
Gracie.
Second, any counselors?
Melendez.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. We're adjourned at 7:53. You have the floor, Moderator Evan. Go for it. Oh, you didn't have
We never convened a meeting because we didn't have a quorum and we still don't, so.
Okay. So Board of Ed, all those in favor, please say aye. All right, I got it. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Thank you again, Susan and Kim. We appreciate the invitation.
We do appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Mark.